I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. It's good to have you back.
Oh, hey there. Hey, that's why I got all this makeup and everything.
We were all just hanging out for the last 8 hours, and then a camera popped up. It's great to have you back. We missed you yesterday. We always miss you when you're not here. Did you have some
good to see you, brother.
I had good family time in Atlanta.
Time?
Absolutely.
Yes.
CC's sis, you will be glad to hear this. CC's family is family in Atlanta. Big Jenna Wolfe fans.
Get out of here. Smart
really
family,
Absolutely.
CC.
Really are my sisters.
Good.
So it was nice. It's a good
Awesome.
trip. We missed
My
you.
mom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other family
Also,
members?
they said,
Go ahead.
not to your delight, Nick. They said, Cris, we need you to sit down. I was like, okay, all right, no problem sitting down. No more spaceship stories.
Oh, no. Hey, listen, family Carter, lovely women of the Carter family. You're wrong. There'll be plenty of spaceship
And
stories.
Sue.
And
She's like abort.
Sue?
She was texting abort.
The newest member of
But
the Carter
tell-
family, Sue. Guess what? More spaceship stories coming. If you're a new viewer to First Things
Tell
First,
'em.
that's just a long-term tease. Cris Carter has seen a spaceship, maybe been aboard a spaceship. More to come later.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't
But
know
after
if
I
there'll be
saw
more to
Black
come,
Panther,
but
I kind of saw that, okay, that's what, maybe I was on that.
Exactly right. On your way to Wakanda. Damn straight. There you go, see?
Hey, if that's not a great way to start the show, can I borrow a pen?
Let's do
Thank you
this.
so much. Hey, there is a lot of chatter out there about Odell Beckham and his future with the New York Giants. Here's what we know. He's either staying, going, playing, or holding out. So you're welcome for all that information. Yesterday, we told you that John Mara came out and said Odell wasn't untouchable. Now today, Giants reportedly, quote, probably won't trade Odell Beckham Jr. Tomorrow, who knows? Giants owner Steve Tisch says there's no sense in rushing Odell's contract extension.
Odell's contract will be negotiated at the appropriate time. So to speculate on the what-ifs and the what would you do and the if this happens, what will happen, I can't do that. It's not realistic and it's not in anyone's best interest. I would like to have Odell on the Giants this coming season. He's a tremendous athlete. He's a great player. So I do hope that Odell is with the Giants for the 2018 season.
You could interpret that any way you'd like. That could be a ringing endorsement, or it could not be a ringing endorsement. CC, how do you think the Giants should handle the Odell Beckham Jr. situation?
I'd sign him to a contract extension. I'd offer him and his agent. I'd sit down with him. I know they're looking for major guarantees, so I'd probably give him about $50 million in guarantees. I'd offer him a 3-year deal. I'd give him $20 million each of those 3 years. I guarantee the first 2 years of it. I give him 20 and 20. I guarantee the first 2 years, so that's $40 million guaranteed. The third year, I'm going to pay him $20 million too, but half that's going to be guaranteed if he doesn't get in any trouble leading up to that. So I'm willing to give him at least $50 million guaranteed. Give him 20, 20 and 20, 60. Give him 50 of it guaranteed, plus the 8 he's got for this year. So I'd have him for a 4-year deal for $68 million.
So
Nick, you do the number.
You tack it on to the end. I want to make sure the audience
Oh, no,
knows.
you can't.
You're not ripping up the 5th year.
Who's getting their contract ripped up?
Okay, I just want to make sure the audience understood. So it's effectively a 4-year, $68 million deal.
Yeah, that's just the way the other deals are done.
Right, sure.
You know,
Absolutely.
he's already signed the deal. He's in the last year of it. I'm going to make him live out that. He's getting paid $8 million. You know, it's the last year of his rookie contract. I'm willing to tack on 3 other years after that at $20 million a year.
Right, averages out to $17
How's
million.
that different than what Odell wants?
Go ahead.
That would make him the top paid receiver by a few million.
Right.
You know, it would get him the money he wants right now and it'd give him the guarantees. There's nothing. The only problem about the contract he might like is some of the fine print in there. You know, if you happen to get in trouble, if you happen to, I'd probably have like a point system. You know, if you happen to get suspended from the league, you miss some time, you know, because that's going to cost you some of your guarantees. And don't forget that $10 million I had you in the last year, that contract, that's going to be gone. So now you're down to $40 million guaranteed compared to 50. Now, you could look at it and be like, I give him 58 guaranteed because once he signed the contract and he came to training camp this year, I guaranteed $8 million from this year, too. So I guarantee him $58 million, but I'd have some small print, which we've seen other players do. I'd have some things in there as far as his conduct on and off the field, his off-season workouts. He would be attending all those, practicing with the New York Giants. He would be attending every training camp. That would be my proposition to him, and I'd make him the highest paid, and I'd give him $20 million a year.
All right, he would not be spending OTAs working out with Cris Carter. He would be spending OTAs working out with the New York Giants.
Absolutely.
He would not, because here's the thing, because you and I on this, and I didn't know what you were going to say, are on the same page. I think it is an untenable situation to say we're keeping Odell, we're not giving him a new deal. I don't think that is. First of all, I think despite the off-field antics,
well, they'd have to go backwards.
Correct. That's where I was leading up to. I think despite the off-the-field antics, the off-the-field antics do not include an arrest. They do not include a suspension. They do not include something to me so drastic to where you could credibly go backwards from what you had said, which is that we want to give you a new deal. I also think because of what's happened this offseason with that video, you have given yourself more leverage as far as being able to put in parameters that would void guarantees if Odell is not a good actor. I know Jenna was really put off by the end zone celebration. I don't really care about that. I don't really care about the passion and anger on the sidelines. I think that is par for the course for a lot of high-level
let's just put a little bookmark right there, though. But when the ownership talks to you and you start to get penalized, which hurts the team, all right? Now, in this era that we're in, they're allowing people to celebrate, but there's certain things you cannot do. So, like, why bring all that attention to yourself? To me, that's immature.
I agree it's immature, and I'm not defending it. What I was going to say was I don't really care about those things as far as would that change my commitment to the player. But I care enormously about what happened this offseason, because what matters to me is, can the player play 16 games for me? Can the player be on the field for me 16 games?
But he's not playing golf. He's not by himself. So you can't take all these other little things in a team sport that affect other people and say, I don't care about those things. You have to care about them because he's functioning within an organization that it affects other people in the organization.
Also, if you're the owner and last year you sat down and you brought him into your office and said, I don't like what you did in the end zone. I don't want that kind of behavior again. And then the video comes out, you're still saying, fine.
And after he agreed to it.
Of course he said, I'm going to change. I understand what you're saying. We're on the same page. Let's move forward. You're still saying, it's okay. I spoke to you, but you didn't listen to me. This video came out. We'll move forward. I'll still give you your money.
What I'm trying to say, and I just try to hear me on this, is I am putting these things in separate buckets. I think this video is enormously more important and more potentially damaging than the kicking net, than the end zone, than any of that stuff.
The only thing is those things happened before.
Of course.
So they're all part of the story.
Of course.
You can't get to the end of the book, that being wherever he was in Paris, and say, I don't like this. It's all telling the whole story.
I agree with you. The point that I'm making is I think, very simple. The one thing to me that is an enormous red flag is what appears to me to be drugs in that video, and whether or not Odell could end up being taken off the field because of that. The other things we can, even if nobody likes them, I can maybe deal with them more. I'm less bothered by them, but we don't need to argue about that point. The point I'm making is a simple one. Because of that video, I would put very strict parameters into the contract CC is talking about, saying if you ever miss a game because of a drug suspension, your guarantees are voided. Your contract's not voided. We still have your rights, but your guarantees are voided. I think your point system is an interesting one as far as if you get, call them misdemeanors. If you're getting excessive celebration flags, that's a point. If things that are within your control. I hadn't thought of that. I think that's really intriguing because what I think has to happen for the Giants is they have to find a way to sign him to a contract extension, or trading him might be the best option. And trading your best player is so rarely the right thing to do for your franchise when he's 25 years old.
The plain devil's advocate, just for a second, a lot of people would say you would offer him a contract before you see how he responds and he rebounds from the sprained ankle before he steps foot on the field. I mean, a lot of people would love to see him play out a little bit or play the year out before they offered him a max deal like that.
Well, he has a type of injury that 99.9% of professional athletes are going to recover from. So, no, he's proven enough in his 3 years as an athlete that we know what he can do. He's already proven that he needs a new contract.
And to CeCe's point earlier, John Mara said he was getting a new contract post-ankle break. Like, it's not like they said, we're going to give Odell a new contract in 2018, and then he broke his leg.
Sure.
He knew that this had happened. He knew he had suffered the injury.
It was post-ankle break, but it was obviously before the video, which is why this is all now coming
Absolutely.
back.
But as far as concern about his health, I don't think that's on the list right now.
Got it. Okay, let's take a break. We'll talk more about this. Cris is going to join the show. We'll deal with it with him. But first, a former San Antonio Spur has some really harsh words for Pop and the organization. That's next on First Things First. Topic, Kawhi Leonard, only 8 games left in the season for the Spurs. Still no idea if, when, how Kawhi is coming back. He's only played 9 games so far, hampered by a quad injury. The Spurs have medically cleared him to play, mind you. Yesterday, we told you that teammate Tony Parker said his own quad injury was 100 times worse, and he came back to play. Now former teammate Steven Jackson chimed in with some harsh words for Parker on the herd. Listen to this.
Anything that comes out in the media or anything that needs to be said or distributed down to the team, it comes from Pop through Tony and Ginobili. Now, y'all might not believe this, but the meeting that was Sosei threw up on Kawhi after the game, that came down from Pop to those guys. They didn't do that on their own. Tony don't have the balls to do that. Ginobili don't have the balls to do that, okay? They just not outspoken guys, and I don't think nobody feared them to respect their word, right? So that came from up top, no question. I wouldn't be surprised if this makes Kawhi want to leave. Because when your teammates going against you in the media like that and not having your back, you know that's coming from up top. Why would you want to be there?
Wow. I mean, this is mess begets mess begets mess with this organization. CC, are Popovich and the Spurs in some way being unfair to Kawhi Leonard and his injury and his decision not to play?
Well, for one, we don't know the extent of how bad Kawhi's hurt. Obviously, Kawhi's feeling as if he shouldn't be out there. I know this is a tactic by coaches, very, very successful. I know that being close to Phil Jackson and the Bulls and the Lakers with a very dear friend of mine, Ron Harper. Well, Ron Harper was a lot of time, he was the peacemaker between Kobe and Shaq and other things that they had when he was in Chicago with Pippen and Rodman. And I mean, this is not the first time in sports we've seen stuff like this. What Steven Jackson is saying, typically the coach is going to go to guys, the older statesmen, the guys who have been there the longest. We call them lieutenants. And typically they go into the locker room to be able to convey a message of what the coach or the front office is trying to say to the players and tap into information that's going to come from Kawhi that he potentially is not going to tell Pop or the organization. So I'm with Steven Jackson. When you've played for an organization, when you've played for a coach, you know the characteristics of the people. So you listen to them and you give them the respect of, yes, they have more intel on this situation than you. So I don't think San Antonio's being unfair. They're trying to get the player on the court. If the doctor cleared him, they're trying to get him on the court as soon as possible. Now, as far as Ginobili and Parker, he's right. They should have never talked about Kawhi to the media. They should never let that information out. That's information that we as teammates, that we have agreed that we are going to, even if we disagree, we are never going to let someone outside the family have that information.
Do you agree then with Steven Jackson that this came from Popovich, that it was sort of his edict that he laid down for these guys to be mouthpieces for the team?
It's one of the things that coaches do on a regular basis. So, no, I'm not surprised. It's not a matter, do I agree with Steven Jackson? Like Steven said it, all right? He's played for Pop.
And Steven has had an instance where Pop, not apples to apples, but a similar instance where Pop went to him and asked him to say something to the team that, by the way, Steven didn't believe, and Steven ended up leaving the team because of it. Steven's told this story before, but Steven was killing, I think it was Ginobili, regularly in practice, and Ginobili's confidence was down. And Pop went to Steven Jackson and said, they're not going to hear it coming from me. I need you to say to the team, you're better than me.
They were getting ready for a playoff
push, and I think the player was Ginobili. For the story, I'll make it Ginobili. I need you to say in front of the team, Manu, you're better than me. You should be playing. And Steven couldn't do it. Steven said, Coach, I can't do it. You got to cut me. And Coach did cut him. By the way, despite that, I want people to also understand this. Steven Jackson has said on the air and off the air, not revealing confidences here, he loves Popovich.
Yeah.
That's his favorite coach. So he's not looking for a reason to take a shot at Greg Popovich here. He's simply using his insight and his history with this team to say what he believes is happening. Why I'm so glad to hear this from Steven Jackson is last week when we talked about this, it was so frustrating to me because I couldn't make sense of what was going on. And now after hearing that, I think I have a better idea of what's going on. I truly believe what's going on is this, that Pop believes once Kawhi plays in a game, once he comes back, he will realize, oh, I can do it. That Pop was trying to, initially through Pop's public comments about setting a deadline, and then through the team meeting, trying to exert enough pressure on Kawhi to get him back out on the court, because I believe Pop thinks you're going to be okay. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust the injury. But if you get out there, you'll see it. You'll experience it. I don't think Pop is trying to risk Kawhi's long-term health for this season. I think he really believes this is what's best for the player. You're not hearing it from me. Maybe you'll hear it from your teammates. That's what I think is going on.
Something along the lines of psychological warfare. And maybe there is a psychological element to it that Kawhi is both doubting his injury and his ability to fit right in and be this hero that everyone's making out to be. You know, oh, well, as long as we get Kawhi back, we'll definitely be fine in the first round, second round. And is there a psychological component to it? Do you think as an athlete who sat out most of the season?
Psychologically, there's always a component to that. But as far as Pop trying to get Kawhi to do something with his body, listen, let me tell you something. There's not a coach that has, I don't care how many championships they've won. You've never experienced playing with that body, so there's nothing Pop would be able to get Kawhi. Kawhi knows it's better than Pop would know. Now, we're not breaking down X's and O's, but you're talking about how you feel as an athlete. I am not relying on some coach to tell me, oh, Chris, if you get through this stage, you'll feel better. No, I believe in Kawhi, and I believe what Kawhi's body is saying to him, regardless of what Pop thinks, because that is not his expertise.
But what we also do know about Kawhi Leonard, there aren't many fair knocks on him as a player. But one of the critiques of Kawhi prior to this year had been he is a guy that is not comfortable playing at less than close to 100%. There's a reason that prior to this year, only twice in his career had he even played 70 games in a season. That he's a guy that if there is a nagging
Isn't that part of San Antonio's system too? So now we're going to put this on Kawhi because they do rest their players. Mm-hmm. They err on the side of caution. That's the reason why he hadn't played a lot of games.
Kawhi is, though, the first, and I mean, just historically, he's the first young player that had the DNP rests. We had seen the DNP rests starting with Duncan in his later years, with Ginobili.
So now we're going to put it on Kawhi, though.
No. I'm not. Hold on. I'm not.
What if Pop believes in the system so much better now that he's going to start players early on that system?
And I believe that is absolutely a part of it. I'm just saying from the people that cover the team daily, which I obviously don't do, that was something you had heard prior to this season, that Kawhi was not a guy that was comfortable playing. And the Spurs, by the way, I think embraced that approach to your point, that he wasn't a guy that was going to go out there with less than 100% the way some guys would. And I think the Spurs encouraged that behavior, which is why them being juxtaposed on this, at least prior, was so confusing.
The one thing I'm not hearing from either of you is that this is the beginning of the end for the relationship between Kawhi and the Spurs, that you both feel like this is going to work itself out in some capacity.
No, I don't know that, Jenna.
Oh.
No, I don't.
Case of me putting words in your mouth. Don't mind me over here. Really.
Go ahead.
I mean, I had said a long time ago that Kawhi could leave San Antonio. Like, I'll stick by that.
All right. Talk about this some more coming up. But on the other side, is tension within the Patriots organization a good thing for business? Next on First Things First. All right, college basketball now. Another season, another mass exodus for Kentucky. Coach Cal says he expects just about all of his players to go through the draft process and see where the committee sees them going. Nick, how do you see all that playing out?
Listen, I think this is what every college player that has any shot of going pro or being a pro should do. The NCAA removed the restriction a few years ago to where now you can do this an unlimited number of times as long as you don't sign with an agent. You can put your name into the draft process, get a true evaluation, figure out where you would be slotted, and then decide whether or not you should go pro. This is one of the reasons I like Coach Cal. He encourages his guys to do this. He is not selfish about their talent. Hey, listen, go find out. Maybe a team loves you. Maybe a team's telling you you're going to be a lottery pick. Like, maybe you should turn pro. So this is what any potential NBA player should do. I like to see Coach Cal encouraging his guys to do it.
I agree with Coach Cal doing it because it's a part of his normal basketball development. Other colleges, it's not part of them. They don't like to talk about the NBA, so now all of a sudden, if they start allowing players to get a preview of what the NBA is thinking about them, they would start after talking about the NBA more than they're comfortable. I like Coach Cal because he's authentic with it. From the time he meets the kids in high school, the NBA is part of the conversation. He knows it. It's an elephant in the room. People don't want to talk about it, so he initiates the conversation about the NBA and about their future. To me, I would use it as a valuable part of my basketball development. Yeah, you've had a good season. Let's see what the NBA thinks about you. And then we would sit down and try to develop skills around what the NBA said about him and what my staff has said about him moving forward for his basketball future. So I like what Coach Cal's doing.
All right, finally, the odds are out for the NCAA championship. Villanova is the favorite at slightly less than even odds, followed by Michigan at 13-5, Kansas at 18-5, and the Loyola Fighting Sister Jeans at 12-1. Cece, who's got a better chance to win this, Villanova or the field?
Man, that's hard. It's hard to do because Villanova, for us as being friends of the show, and we've seen Villanova. We've been on Villanova for a long, long time. 15 weeks during the regular season, Villanova's #1. So right now they're in the Final Four. Who do you think's going to win? They're the only #1 there besides Kansas. Yes, they should be the overwhelming favorite. When you look at what's happened coming out of Chicago, Loyola Chicago, Sister Jenna, as you mentioned, and Michigan. Michigan's lucky to be there. Now, they got a good team, and I believe Michigan matches up well against Villanova. But when you ask me right now, there's 4 teams. Villanova is the favorite to win it, and I believe that I would take Villanova over the field.
You would take Villanova over
Yes.
the field. I was not prepared to take Villanova over the field in the round of 16 because there were too many other teams. They had too many games to go through, even though I thought Villanova was the best team. Now that we're down to 4, I absolutely would take Villanova over the field. That even money bet is a bet that I may have placed yesterday. Like, I think Villanova is better than Kansas, and I know that if Villanova gets through Kansas, they will be a significant favorite, even though Michigan's playing really well over Michigan, or if Loyola Chicago gets there. The other thing you got to look at, of the teams remaining, Villanova is the only one that hasn't had a close call. Like, we saw Michigan need a miracle to beat the University of Houston.
Yes.
Needed some missed free throws, needed a last-second shot. Kansas nearly lost to Duke. Like, they needed a 3-2 force overtime to even get there. And we know Loyola, in each of its first 3 rounds, they won those first 3 games by a combined 4 points, 2 of which on essential buzzer beaters. Villanova's been beating people by double digits throughout this tournament. I mean, I think they are. I would rather them than the field right now, without question.
That could be a bad thing, too, that they haven't really been tested. They haven't really had to pull one out. They haven't really had to see what they're made of, to really grind one in this tournament.
In most teams, that might be, to their detriment. But when you look at Villanova and you know their history, like, they've been battle tested. They got battled this year against Xavier. Yeah. Their conference gives them the battles that you would need. We saw here in New York City in the Big East tournament. Also, just 2 years removed from winning the national championship. So they have all the testing, but the games that they did win, they weren't all blowouts. If you watch the first half of those games, in those games, the reason why they weren't contested in the end was because Villanova played well under duress. When they had to, when it was time to step up, make a shot, get a stop, they were able to do all these things.
And of their top 6 players in this tournament, 5 of them have been with the program at least 3 years. 4 of them were with the program when they won a national championship. Like, these are veteran players, so that, I think, works in their favor as well.
All right, moving on. I don't care how successful your family is. Everyone's got at least a little drama. My family, your family, Bob Kraft's family. Despite making it to 3 Super Bowls in the last 4 years, the Patriots have some, let's call them unresolved issues. For one, Tom Brady turns 41 in the offseason. That's like 71 in football years. There seems to be lingering questions of whether he and Bill Belichick are on the same page. Owner Robert Kraft had an interesting way of describing the Patriots' post-Super Bowl issues.
The residual of this loss, was really hard on everyone. But I sort of see that as a high-class problem because I sat in the stands when we never were in the playoffs at home for 20-odd years.
The Super Bowl, the Patriots complaining about Super Bowl problems is like me saying, oh, I didn't get my full 60 minutes at the gym. Not a lot of people are going to have too much sympathy. But, CC, are people sort of blowing the problems that New England's having now out of proportion?
I don't see New England having more than, I think the word, I'm always stickler to the words. New England's got issues, so do the other 31 teams in the NFL. How they're going to replace players, how they're going to replace coaches. I don't see it as a problem. I mean, they lost the Super Bowl. How do you recover from that? They do know how to do those things. So I don't look at New England as if, man, they got a bunch of problems this offseason because they lost at the Super Bowl. They're trying to get ready for 2018. They're one of the 6 to 8 teams that have real Super Bowl goals in 2019. They have real goals. Their salary cap is managed well. They got a good group of players coming back. They got Tom Brady coming back. So I'm with Kraft. I remember when the Patriots were in the bleachers. I remember when they were horrible. He hadn't
Rod Rust Patriots.
He hadn't forgotten that. So for him to say, wow, we were able to retain Josh McDaniels after losing our defensive coordinator, to me, that's not a problem. That's a good thing. They have their quarterback that's doing a documentary on his life that's saying, regardless, I'm going to play, I'm going to win, going against time, I'm going to win. That, to me, that is not a problem. That's a good situation for Mr. Kraft. So when you look to the AFC, who's going to be the favorites, they have so many problems that right now I haven't looked at it, picked at it, but I think that New England's going to be one of 3 teams that will be the favorite in the AFC next year to make it back to the Super Bowl.
Listen, I don't think the Pats, if we're going to talk about what's the biggest Pats problem, right? Because as Robert Kraft mentioned, these are essentially rich people problems, right, is what he's saying. These are high-class problems. These are good problems to have. It is nothing to do with the drama. It's not about the Brady, Belichick, Kraft, power struggle. If there's any problems, it's the same problems that I think hurt them in the Super Bowl. It's how good is the defense? It's how talented of a roster do you have once you get past the quarterback and the coach? And it's the offseason departures. I think losing Nate Solder, I think that could be a problem for them. They have not had turnover at the left tackle position. I think losing Malcolm Butler, who played more snaps than anyone on your defense, could be a problem for them. I think they know they need to get better defensively, which is why they bring in guys such as Adrian Claiborne, Danny Shelton. They bring in the other McCourty twin, Jason McCourty, to try to upgrade that defense. I think that if you look at the other teams that were in the Final Four last year, they all did it with replacement quarterbacks, essentially. Blake Bortles, I know, was the starter to begin the year, but he's a replacement-level quarterback. Sure. They got there. Minnesota had to replace their quarterback. They got there. Philadelphia had to replace their quarterback. They got there. How were they able to do that? Overwhelming strength on the rest of the roster. The Pats don't have that. Now, what they do have is, thanks to the Jimmy Garoppolo trade, instead of having, I think, only 1 pick in the top 65 like last year because they had traded away a pick for Brandon Cooks, they have 3 picks in the top 65. They have their own first and second round picks plus San Francisco's. They should be able to add some talent. But if we're going to dissect what is a potential issue for the Pats, it's just how talented is the overall roster once you get past the coach and the quarterback. I'm not worried about some of the, as we have the New York Post on the table, some of the tabloid drama, because when Josh McDaniels came back, when Bill Belichick came back, when Tom Brady came back, to me that says they're not concerned about, at least for this upcoming season.
I agree with you. But the situation and the problems and the player turnover that you're talking about is what every single team in the league is talking about. The Patriots happen, and I think what Robert Kraft was asked about is the Patriots happened to be coming off a year that was a little bit different than most. There was tension. There were these meetings that were leaked about Tom Brady and his relationship with Bill Belichick. Jimmy Garoppolo was traded. There's stemmed from perhaps Tom Brady being unhappy.
I guess my response to that would be, and it was such a distraction, such a
that
disaster.
They finished the season.
They had the ball down 5 with 2.5 minutes left to go win the Super Bowl. Like, they seem to, it didn't, if last year it ended with them getting blown out in their first playoff game and Brady and Belichick not speaking and all the coordinators leaving, then it's like, oh,
well,
there's
that's
something
why
here.
Robert Kraft said they're not real problems, but I think they're lines of tension, at least a little bit.
Didn't they win 2 out of the last 3 Super Bowls?
2 out of the last 4 now, 2 out of the last 3 prior. Yeah. Those are, as Marlo Sanfield would say, one of them good problems.
Hashtag
I don't see it as a problem. Next time we put that, we'll change the word on that.
Okay.
I think
what
he
are New
said
England's
it.
issues?
Didn't Robert Kraft say that? Is that what he said? That there were issues, or he
said
them
high-class
problems?
Yeah.
His words. All right, coming up. Is there a new team in the NFC that the Eagles should be afraid of? That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Chris Canty joins us.
Hey now.
Chris.
What up, brother?
What's going on, bro? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
CC looking clean. Spring has sprung. Bright colored tie with the square to pop.
Look at you.
I have people who dress me.
I got you. I got you.
I got a bunch of Italians.
Okay.
They're all working.
Named Christine.
It's a very Italian name. There are 2 types of people in the world: those who think defense wins championships and other people. Clearly, the LA Rams are the former, putting together what could be an incredible defense. They reportedly are signing Ndamukong Suh to a 1-year deal. He will join Aaron Donald on a fearsome D-line and join newcomers Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters in what should be a very entertaining locker room. Chris, is this a good fit for Suh and the Rams? Were you surprised by the signing?
Wasn't surprised by the signing. Ndamukong Suh wanted to play for a contender. That's why he went and visited the New Orleans Saints, and he went and visited the Los Angeles Rams, and he ruled out the Oakland Raiders. So he's a guy that's looking to compete for a championship. That's about the only thing that's missing off of his resume, because he's made a ton of money in this league as well. But in terms of the Los Angeles Rams and what they're trying to do, they're trying to get to a championship. You see that from the moves that they made, bringing in Talib and then bringing in Marcus Peters, now signing Ndamukong Suh in free agency. These moves make sense because that's the side of the ball that they had to improve on. They had to improve the talent level on their defense. They were 19th in total defense last year. And anybody that knows anything about defense knows that good defense starts with being able to stop the run. And Ndamukong Suh is going to help them do that. From an X's and O's standpoint, he's a guy that's going to command a double team. He and Aaron Donald are somewhat interchangeable, although I think you would probably want Ndamukong Suh to play the shade and Aaron Donald the 3 technique so he can get upfield. But he's going to make this team drastically better. They're going to be able to stop the run. You look at the landscape of the NFC, every team in the playoffs, save the Atlanta Falcons, had a top 10 rushing attack. So that's where it starts, being able to stop the run against those teams.
Listen, I think Suh as a run defender is still one of the best D tackles in the league. I think that he was overpaid in Miami. I think it's tough to get that type of value out of that position unless he's the disruptor that Aaron Donald is. And I only say overpaid in this regard, that he didn't meet the production as far as his percentage of the cap. But the reason the moment he was cut in Miami, I said on this show, they were asked, where would you like to see him go? I said the Los Angeles Rams next to Aaron Donald. Because what Suh has never had in his career is his D-tackle line mate be better than him. Be the one that needs the double team to where he all of a sudden is getting more favorable matchups. He has always been the guy, even when he wasn't at the top of his game like this last year in Miami, that the interior offensive lines he's going up against are scheming against him. They're going to scheme against Aaron Donald. The reason I like this move for the Rams this year is I feel like the Rams are recognizing our window changes drastically in the next 36 months. Why? Because Aaron Donald's about to become the highest paid defensive player ever. And then a couple years later, guess what? Jared Goff is not going to be making rookie money.
Before Jared Goff.
Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley.
Right. So in what we would imagine would be 3 consecutive off seasons, Donald extension, Gurley extension, Goff extension. So you know what? We'll hope Wade Phillips and Sean McVay can deal with the the egos or the personalities in that locker room. But let's go try to win a title right now, because it's going to be hard to have this much talent on the team moving forward once your best players, your 3 best players on your team, or your 2 best players plus your quarterback, are all on rookie contracts. And in 3 consecutive years, those rookie contracts will be expiring, and they will be making top-of-the-market money.
I think it's a great move, and the reason why is because Wade Phillips. You don't get Ndamukong Suh if you don't have Wade Phillips there. You can't trade for Marcus Peters if you don't have Wade Phillips there. You cannot take Talib in your locker room and on your team unless you have Wade Phillips there. Now, a lot of people, they think they watch football. So the Rams last year, the Rams had a good season. They don't realize their defense was not good. People ran the ball down their throat. People talk about Aaron Donald all the time. Oh, yeah, amazing player. They ran the ball down the neck of the L.A. Rams' throat last year. Their linebacker play was not good. Robert Quinn, there was a reason why they traded him from a defensive end, all right? From the star he used to be to the one-dimensional upfield rusher that he had become. There's a reason. The Rams defense was not good. So it's not like we are pairing up this great young explosive offense with this great dominant defense. No, man. The reason why they went out and acquired those players was they had major holes in that defense. Their defense has gotten a lot better this offseason on paper.
On paper.
Now, will that transfer over to in the games and winning football games? I believe it will, and I believe it will because of Wade Phillips. I believe him communicating what Ndamukong Suh can do now. And Wade Phillips, I remember my experience comes from being with Jerome Brown and Reggie White. Right? That's why I got confidence in Wade Phillips. Not only his ability to come up with a game plan specifically for players to their skill level, but dealing with their personalities. And Sean McVay can't do this. I mean, man, I got tennis shoes older than him. And that's one of the values in having Wade Phillips on that team is now you can go out and get players who the head coach might not be able to relate to, but your defensive coordinator and your assistant head coach, he can. And that's the value that Wade Phillips keeps bringing to this L.A. Rams franchise.
You did a great job of explaining how Suh fits in well on that line and the pressure that's going to be taken off him. But when you guys talk about personalities and how it works and how it fits and on paper translating to on the field, just break down a little bit of what that means. I mean, are guys so arrogant that they don't want to play with someone else as a superstar? Is it that they're worried about other talents? Like, what are the personalities we're actually dealing with?
No, well, here's the thing. I think you have a lot of young players on that team, but you have a good blend of veteran guys. That's why they went out and bought in Andrew Whitworth in free agency last year. And you talk to anybody that's in that Rams locker room, and they'll tell you he's been great not only in terms of what he's done on the field and stabilizing that offensive line, but what he's done in that locker room, being able to take the messaging from the general manager and head coach and reinforce it with the other 52 guys. So I think because you had the success with Sean McVay in his rookie year, I think that gives them a little bit more credibility in terms of being able to absorb some of those personalities from other organizations. Teams have seen that work in the past where they're able to bring those guys in, and because you've had the success and you've already established that culture, your locker room is able to handle those types of guys. So I don't worry too much about Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, Jenna, the reason why I mentioned personalities is because people don't understand NFL locker rooms. It's not Major League Baseball. There's only 20 players. Most of those players aren't from the United States. So they have other issues they have to deal with. As far as the NBA, you got 15 players. In NFL, you got 70 players and the personalities because you live in the locker room. That's why we talk about the culture. What's going to be like in the locker room? You have to like guys to be around them 5 days, 6 days a week, and for the amount of hours you're going to be around them. So it's a prominent part of the NFL culture is what kind of locker room are they going to create. We don't worry about locker rooms that teams don't want to win. We worried about locker rooms of the teams because those become some of the intangibles that put teams over the top, from being a wild card team to winning their division to getting a bye, and that's what the Rams are looking at.
So hold on quickly, because I just want to ask you this question, because I know you have not been a buyer on Ndamukong Suh in the locker room. You've talked on this area about you've brought up the face stomping, like the things that we have real reason.
I would say that Ndamukong Suh is not a bad guy in the locker room, but he is not a glue guy.
Exactly.
He is very quiet, and when you pay the type of money that you are paying Ndamukong Suh, you would hope that there would be some type of mentorship and some other things from veteran players. Now, he's a hired gun now. 1 year to come in and crush people, but that culture there in L.A., I'm sure they're going to put a mandate on his personality to come out of his shell a little bit and open up to younger players, because that's what you need from your veteran players.
And the one-year deal is, you would think with Sue, that lack of every play effort that has been a knock on him in the past with these enormous contracts he's always played under, maybe lack of an issue when he's playing essentially as a pending free agent?
Well, here's the thing. You saw the instability with the Miami Dolphins organization. You don't have that with the Los Angeles Rams, and it's clear that this team has a chance to actually win, something he hadn't had in the last 4 years. So he's got a chance to compete for a title. I think you get different production from guys when they recognize an opportunity to compete at the highest level.
We'll see. He loves to make money.
Okay.
That's a great point.
Chris Canty, we're going to see you a little bit later on. Coming up, though, let's talk some basketball. Does Markelle Fultz's return hurt or help the Sixers' chances in the East? Also, Markelle Fultz returned last night. We answer that next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Chris Broussard is here. How you doing, Chris?
Great, great. Always good to be here.
How's it going?
Great.
Yeah, isn't it funny that yesterday Chris was filling in for you? You're shaking your head because you're afraid of what I'm going to say.
No, I'm not afraid. You don't know what I'm going to say.
You're right. I just pulled the Nick Wright. I literally just pulled the Nick Wright. And out of the blue, we started talking about Markelle Fultz. Remember, I was like, hey, whatever happened to Markelle Fultz?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the intro that you butchered with the Chris. And Chris, we got too many Chris's here.
Oh,
I was watching the show.
You didn't like that. You didn't like that,
He was part of the butchering. He did it with me.
I have no
Chris's.
That's right. That's right.
If I'm willing to accept the beards, you can accept the Chris's.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
I mean, a real beard.
Jenna's point was,
then what Nick has
we
on his
talked
face.
about Markelle Fultz off the air,
Apparently,
and now he's back.
Yes, it seemed witty when I wrote it at 3 o'clock this morning. Apparently, Markelle Fultz overheard us, decided last night was going to be his night to get back on the court after his shoulder injury. The #1 overall pick played for the first time since October 23rd. He missed 68 games and seemingly forgot how to shoot the basketball. He scored 10 points last night, dished 8 assists in a win over the Nuggets. Fultz spoke about his performance after the game.
It was a little bit of excitement and a little bit of just like, I got to help the team. Like, I don't want to let the team down. So, I mean, once I stepped on the floor, it felt great just to be back out there with my brothers and have fun.
All right, Chris, how optimistic are you after what you saw from Fultz last night?
I liked what I saw. I thought he played really well. And this is what I saw early in the year. I mean, he didn't play much, but early in the year, I felt I saw the same thing. The athleticism, the quickness, the speed, the aggressiveness. Now, he doesn't have a jump shot, but what I liked last night was the question was, where's his confidence? You know, when your jump shot goes the way his did, where's your confidence? He looked confident last night. I mean, I actually thought he took 13 shots in 14 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, look, slow up, young fella, you know.
Man, get him up, man. You missed time.
Yeah, exactly. I like the aggressiveness. And he brings an element that they had not had before him. They've got pretty much everything. I'm not saying they're a great team yet, but they've got shooting. They've got the great point guard with court vision. They play great defense. They've got the post player inside and Embiid who's versatile. What they didn't have was that one guy who would break you down off the dribble and attack and get to the rim, and now they have that in Fultz. Again, I'm not saying he's going to come in and be a huge factor in the playoffs, but I liked what I saw. I'm very optimistic with this debut.
Chris, let's go back to last year when we were in Los Angeles, when you were very, very high on Markelle, even the abbreviated college season, what you thought. So let's break it down exactly. Forget what happened with his shooting. Who was he last year?
If he were a prospect coming out of college right now.
And why did they make him the #1 pick? What were we looking at?
And traded to get the #1 pick to go get him.
What you were hearing from the workouts with various teams was that he was by far the best one. The most impressive player in the draft. He could, as I said, he could go off the dribble. He could score. He could pass. He could make plays. And I mean, again, in addition to the 13 shots,
unlimited range.
Assists. Well, I didn't want to say that because of what's happened now.
No, we can't. We got to disregard that.
If you take that away, yeah, he was a shooter.
Yes.
That's what was so strange about, and obviously they're putting it on the shoulder, and that certainly has something to do with it. And then I think from there, mentally, he just got messed up.
Listen, this is how good Markelle Fultz was coming out of school. Think about how bombastic and boisterous LeVar Ball has been. He never was saying The Lakers are going to get the #1 pick.
He said everything but that.
Everything. He kept,
Nick Wright stinks.
Right.
Chris Broussard, sometimes I don't like him.
Right. The whole thing.
Chris and Little Nick.
Right. But the whole time prior to the draft, prior to the lottery, he wasn't saying the Lakers are going to get the #1 pick. Yeah. He was always saying the Lakers are going to get the #2 pick and take my son. Why? Because everyone knew this guy was going #1 overall. He was and it's unbelievable to think of now, he was the safest pick. Because what you knew is at the very least, he's going to be a 15 to 20 point a game scorer early in his career and probably 20 plus later in his career. Which is why what happened to him was so perplexing. Now, yesterday, you mentioned getting off 13 shots in 14 minutes. He somehow became the first player in the history of the league, not rookie, player, to have at least 10 points, at least 8 assists in less than 15 minutes of action. I mean, the things were running through him when he was on the court. But I am thrilled for him for this reason. I think the mental hurdle was an enormous one. And if he didn't get back on the court all year, I think you start playing tricks with yourself in your head in the offseason. I think it starts being sleepless nights. I think it starts being, wait, hold on. Am I going to be one of these, like, all-time busts we talk about? A guy that the first ever version of the NBA yips? And so seeing him back on the court, his full shooting stroke is not back yet. No. But he would have been, let me put it like this, a little more context if people didn't watch him at the University of Washington. If he never shot threes, he would have still been a lottery pick based on his explosiveness. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Based on his ability to get to the rim. So for all those reasons, I'm happy for him. The Sixers are an amazing story this year. I mean, this is a big positive.
Well, let's talk about where he factors in with the Sixers now, because what is a successful season? You win a playoff round with him, and it's a great season for them. And let's talk about where the roof is now, the ceiling is with Markelle Fultz playing.
Well, you have to put them in separate brackets, because Philadelphia, they've already clinched a playoff spot. So talking about the process, people criticize the process. The process has worked, not only because they're in the playoffs, but also look at the stat sheet. Look at Joel Embiid. Look at his stats. Look how many games he's played. Look at how they've developed him. So that's another story in itself. Rookie of the Year soon going to be announced next month. Ben Simmons. So they got 3 separate categories right there, even before we get to Markelle. So they have success. As far as the team, Joel Embiid, the process there is working. Bam. Now they got Ben Simmons. Bam. So for me, I wasn't worried about the kid as much because I saw those other 2 struggle, and they were with the organization that was literally not giving lip service, was they were going to be patient. Now, his ability maps up well. Now, he's only got 10 games before the playoffs. So they're going to be a success in the playoffs because of the other stories. But his skill, with Ben Simmons not being a shooter, with Joel Embiid being a dominant post player, scoring more buckets in the post than anyone in the NBA on post-up, with his three-point shooting that will come back, his explosiveness off the bounce, his ability to somehow play elite defense because he is a great athlete, not a good athlete. Man, things are this to me is about LeBron James. Forget the playoffs. Man, LeBron, if I'm looking at Philadelphia, wow, man, that's far more appealing.
You plucked that right from my brain, CC.
No, I'm just saying that, man, they have a true big point guard, a guy that's 6'4", that can go off the dribble, can shoot with either hand, and is going to have his jumper. You got Ben Simmons, who is a LeBron clone. You got Joel Embiid, who is going to be problems for people inside the post and at the three-point line. I mean, to me, this is exciting things happen on Broadway.
Here's the thing about Philly. Anything Fultz gives you this year is icing on the cake. I mean, even, and I got to be honest, watching throughout the season as he was struggling mentally and physically, I was kind of like, they're still okay. Because they still have those other 2 guys. And I believe long-term, those are the 2 guys that are going to be their superstars. Now, Fultz may become a star, whatever. As long as they've got those 2, those bookends at point guard and at center, they're fine. And for the process, look, I thought if they made the playoffs this year, that was a plus because it speeds everything up, right?
Yes.
If they didn't make the playoffs next year, you're like, let's just get in the playoffs. Now you make the playoffs next year. Whether you get LeBron or not, next year you are thinking finals, right?
Can we win the East?
Yeah, can we win the East?
Absolutely.
I think right now they can get, I'm not predicting it, can get to the Eastern Conference Finals if they avoid Cleveland until then.
That is 100% correct. Like, right now, they would play Toronto in round 2. They wouldn't be the favorite against Toronto.
No.
But they could beat Toronto.
Yes.
And it's not an anti-Toronto take. It's who is checking Embiid? Like, do we trust Jonas Valanciunas to check Embiid? Are you going to have Serge Ibaka try to deal with him when Embiid's got 5 inches on him? I don't know. And so if you were to say to me, like, it's obvious I believe Cleveland's going to make the NBA Finals. But if Chris Broussard were to come out here and say, Nick, got a crystal ball, I know for a fact Cleveland doesn't make it. Tell me who does. My answer would be Philly. That was before. That has been for the last 6 weeks. I mean, since Christmas Day, this team's got the 3rd best record in the NBA, the 3rd best defense in the NBA, the 2nd best net rating, how much they're beating people by in the entire NBA. It's only Houston ahead of them in all 3 of those categories. So in the record, in the rating category. I want to say one thing, though, about Fultz, because it's very difficult for rookies, especially perimeter players, in their whole rookie season, but particularly their first 20 games, to be a positive impact on any team. Initially, I was like, man, could he actually kind of, even though I'm happy for him, kind of a little bit disrupt what they have going in Philly? And then I realized he's going to be taking minutes from T.J. McConnell.
Exactly.
And T.J. McConnell is a below replacement level player in the league. So if Markelle Fultz is T.J. McConnell's a guy who has shot the same amount of threes as Ben Simmons this year as a 6'2" point guard. So he has been a huge negative. If you're taking McConnell's minutes, even if you don't do what you did last night, that's a positive for Philly. This is a really good day to be a Sixer fan.
No question.
All right, Chris, we'll see you in a little bit. Coming up is a time to consider Lonzo's rookie year successful. Next on First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.